you doing? I hope you are having a wonderful day. I'm here today. My name's Carley Duff and I'm from IMALA, and I'm here in the Stamps by Me studio to bring to you beautiful demonstrations and inspiration at the How to Craft Network channel. Now, don't forget as well, please subscribe, because then you can keep up to date with all of our videos and all of our lives. Today, I'm going to be giving you a lovely treat. I'm going to be showcasing a beautiful stamp. Now, I know this is slightly offset, so you may not be able to see this, but this is called Loving Couple. This is going to be from Chapter 16, the brand new IMALA. And I love this. If you've not seen IMALA, especially this chapter, super exciting, because our whole sort of ethos, if you like, is all about the people that we cherish and we loved over lockdown, and of course the people that we love and respect now. But I wanted to encapsulate all of that feeling of the wonderfulness of our families and friends and our animals around us. So first comes first, I've really simply just taken an 8x8 piece of watercolour cardstock. On top of that, now just in Duffex, or you can cut it out of acetate, just cut yourself a circle stencil. What this does, you'll notice as well, is it just sort of sets the scene, but it keeps it quite sort of fluid and quite sort of contemporary as well. I'm just going to use my magnets at each side to keep that nice and flat. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this wonderful stencil. This is the Daisy Doily by IMALA. It's one of my key favourite stencils, and I'm just placing it over the top of that aperture. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab some ink. I'm going to use Salvage Patina and Shabby Shutters. So I'm just going to pick that Shabby Shutter up first, and I only want to add ink through the stencil within that aperture. So nice and simple, I'm just going to add in two opposing corners, if you like, that beautiful Shabby Shutters. It's a really soft sort of yellowy green, but it works perfectly with the Salvage Patina. So I'm going to bring the Salvage Patina now in and fill in the gaps. You'll notice I haven't cleaned my brush, it's the same brush I'm using. But what this does is it sets your scene absolutely perfectly. So then you just use the brush over the top of the whole of the layers to create beautiful inking straight away. So if I take this stencil away now, I've got that ready to go. So now I'm going to stamp down the side. You can stamp down the side of this. If you wanted, you could very easily stamp over the top, which I'm going to do right now. So because of that, you do need to apply quite a lot of pressure. I'm going to pick it up with my Eureka. Really doesn't matter about adding any ink on the lower part of the stamp. We're not using that part. I'm going to be using my VersaFine. It's just a brilliant all-purpose ink. I always make sure that I stamp at least sort of 4 times, so really load that ink up beautifully, because then it will catch perfectly on all of that detail. So once we've added that little bit of ink, I'm then going to come over and stamp through that aperture. Now you just need to apply a bit of pressure, because obviously you are stamping over the layers. So sometimes it doesn't catch as perfectly straight away. The beauty of using the Eureka means that we can go back and re-ink if needed. But you know what? I am very, very happy with that. So now I'm just going to take away and look at the scene that we have set already. How beautiful is that? It's just so gorgeous and simple and achievable. This is what I love about this. So I'm just going to bring it onto the top of my Eureka. And I'm also going to add in a little piece of this grunge. So I'm not going to put any ink on my brush. I'm still going to use the brush that I was using before. And I'm just continuing that layer across at the sides. It's very, very subtle, but it just works because it just ties everything together. There we go. Beautiful. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to be using my Handmade watercolour palette, which is my absolute favourite. This is the Moist Watercolour palette. If you want a lot more, I'd say vibrant colour rather than watercolour, then I would suggest you go for the Gouache palette, because they're a lot more opaque. so then you can layer them up to get complete full coverage. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to add a little bit of brown just to the side, and then I'm going to pick up a little bit of ochre with that as well, just to create my beautiful hair colour. And of course, even though I've got them inks on there, I can still very simply paint on top of that to achieve the colour that I'm after. Super easy, and we can just very easily add that in. So there's her hair colour. I'm going to go over. Make sure when you pick up your brush, make sure it's not oversaturated, and always rotate your brush, because what that does is it just squeezes out that middle paint and stops you getting the blurge, if you like. So then I'm just going to come over, add a little colour to his hair there. Then we're going to do some skin. So I'm going in that soft pink. Again, rotate your brush, make sure it's not oversaturated. And we are just going to come through. Obviously, I have got that pattern that I've based on there before, but I like that. I think it just gives it a really nice style, and it just ties everything together. You can do dimension colouring, or you can do loose painting, entirely up to you. But I find just adding that little flick of colour, straight away, you know exactly where you are. I'm going to go back into my ochre. Rotate again, and we're just going to look at some darker areas. So we're just doing a tiny bit of shading around this, not too much, but just the accent of the shades. So just a little bit around the arm, a little bit on the neck, and you can see how simply it just works together. I'm going to come down, I'm going to make a tealy colour, so I'm just going to add this blue into my centre, pick up the green, mix together till it's the right sort of teal. There we go. And then I'm just going to lighten that slightly, so I'll just take a little dab of white. Rotate my brush again to make sure I've got it's not oversaturated, and then I'm simply just going to drag that colour through. Very easy, but it just sets it apart. It's almost like storybook, isn't it? It's just got that whole story feel to it. I love this stamp, not only because, of course, it is the loving couple, you also get your sentiment with it, which I will stamp towards the end. It's an incredible stamp. It could be Bon Voyage, it could be Happy Anniversary, it could, it could be romance. There is just so much going on with this stamp, and it's just so super adaptable. I'm just going in and adding a tiny bit of ochre just on his hair, just to allow that to sit beautifully. And I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of blue now, but mainly white. So it's almost like that cornflower sort of baby blue, if you like. And I'm just going to highlight around the edges almost with that blue. So we don't want too much. It's just that accent of colour. Rather than leaning on your work, you'll notice I always rotate as I colour. It just makes it work a lot simpler. I've noticed as well, I love this effect, where I've done my stenciling and now I've painted over the top, it's almost like he's got tattoos. So that's a really nice, easy way to achieve that. So I'm going to come into the ochre now, bring this down, add a little bit of the darker brown as well for his rucksack. And you're just going to follow the lines. Really, really simple. This is a much better way to achieve painting rather than go over the top. You're pulling it in from the sides. Nice and easy. Very loose painting. You really don't need to be absolute perfectionist with this. Then I'm going to go back in that brown, in the dark brown, and just add a little dimension with colour. This is what's so incredible about IMALA, is that you can use colour to create depth on all of your projects. It's so simple. So I'm just going to heat set that just so it doesn't go anywhere. Beautiful. Now, if you've never tried watercolour painting and you're loving the style of this card, what you can do is, if you emboss it, then that will almost give you sort of like a framework, because then the colour can't escape, the watercolour can't escape. So it's a great way to be able to encapsulate all of your work without getting a really wet, mucky mess. So now I'm going to add my sentiment in. This is togetherness. This is the sentiment that comes within this as well, which is fabulous. So you're actually getting the two stamps, which is brilliant. So next what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick that up with a little bit of black ink. Again, I love these sentiments. They're just so inviting, beautiful, positive words that we can use on so many different occasions. So I'm just going to tap that, a little bit of fingertip dancing over the top. Just is the contact that you need. You need the contact of that stamp with that paper to stamp perfectly. Some people prefer to put extra layers underneath maybe their stamp platform. That helps really well. But I think it's stunning to do multiple layers. So now I'm just going to grab my tape and I'm just going to reverse this over. Add a little bit of tape around the edge and I'm simply going to mat this onto some really nice matte silver. Matte silver is fabulous. Not only does it give it that level of classiness, but also it's not too garish, so it works really well. Again, on the opposing side, I'm just going to add it to my 8x8 card. Nice and simple. And we will simply pop it there. Now to finish, to tie everything together, I'm going to grab my black ink and I'm just going to wipe it around the edge. Try not to push into the paper, more or less just wipe it through. Because what this does is it will frame it, but also it just ties everything together, as in the word, exactly. So there we go. A quick and simple, beautiful styles of stamping. And it just shows you as well that you don't need the whole of the stamp, and using an aperture stencil goes a long way. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you feel inspired and I will see you next time. Take care of yourself and each other. Bye.